So to the keynote today, enterprise AI from uncertainty to real business value. This session really focuses around some of the topics that Julie talked about earlier today, right? In terms of some of the uncertainty, we'll cover a little bit about that, but also how do you get to a point where you can start realizing value? Because as Julie said as well, the AI, the adoption of AI has a purpose to make things easier for us. Kind of avoiding the proximity bias that Julie also talked about, gaining greater insights, efficiencies, just business value, right? So it's tantamount that we reach that, but there are considerations, right? And considerations around enterprise AI in particular, which applies for companies like many of yours that you're connected today, right? You have large corporations. The systems that you use today are tantamount to making sure that your business is running at top efficiency, top performance, and AI should be helping and contributing to that. So we'll cover all those aspects here in this presentation. We'll provide some examples. I think we'll have some interactivity as well that Mo's queued up. So let's go ahead and jump in and go to the next slide and get to it. Great. So a little bit of the history of AI, right? And what's interesting, folks, is when we talk about AI, some folks look at AI as something that's new. Well, it's new technology. I'm not sure about it, and what have you. And certainly in the last 24 months, right, 18 to 24 months, things have accelerated significantly in terms of spend on AI technology, as well as the R&D side of AI. But it's not like the genesis was just in the last couple of years, right? There were neural network type of R&D that was being done in the 50s. And in fact, the first digital assistant or chatbot at that point in time, Eliza, was created in the 50s. So humankind has been evaluating AI for quite some time. Fast forward to machine learning, right? In the 80s through 2010, there was a lot of focus around machine learning, being able to find patterns, being able to identify not only detrimental patterns, but also beneficial ones, right? So conformity kind of examples are things that have been researched for a while. And now fast forward to today, and we're seeing a lot of deep learning type of examples. Mo may have some talking points in this area where we're really getting deep analysis, right? And really leveraging the neural network kind of capabilities that were piloted back, right, in the 50s through the 70s, and really starting to leverage that to really add dynamic type of insights, profound type of, patterns and information that we don't see today. So the message is this: AI continues to evolve, and it will likely continue to evolve for the time being. But it's not all new, right? It certainly has matured, and we're seeing the adoption of AI in the enterprise space growing significantly. There's several articles by Gartner and McKinsey and others that are talking about, spend on adoption of AI exceeding or approximating trillions of dollars here in the next couple of years. So, next slide, please. So opportunities with AI, and I'll cover this from an angle, and Mo, please feel free to chime in if you have any topics, right? It's pervasive across all the areas that we do in business, that we deal with business. And Julie had some very interesting ones, and she had some exercises where we did some for kind of personal type of situations. So, but the key thing to realize is similar to the internet, right? When in the 90s, right, the internet was being developed and was being utilized initially in universities, and there was a lot of discussion. Well, that's going to fade, right? How are we going to manage it? How are we going to mitigate misinformation? How are we going to allow it to scale? And fast forward here, right? 30 plus years, and look, it's part and parcel of everything we do. What would we do without it, right? So it's evolved how we do things, how we search for things, how we research, how we get information. And AI is the same way, right? How we interact with machines. So in the past, we talked about Internet of Things. And when I was at Oracle at JD Edwards, right, we came out with new capabilities around Internet of Things. But now we're looking at Internet of Things plus AI and making that even more intelligent, and also kind of interfacing it with ERP. Like I said, every aspect of the enterprise. The interesting and powerful thing about AI as well, it's not specific to just manufacturing or just to the financial sector or whatever. It's across all industries, and everything we do, we can find those use cases, and we'll talk about those here a little bit later. There are some industries that and use cases that are bubbling to the top because they're ones that everybody is familiar with, and maybe we're already seeing AI adoption in those spaces, so we're interacting with them. So it's a natural progression to think, well, maybe we should do that too. But again, what Julie talked about, it's important to make sure that we identify the right use case, the right priority, the right benefit that you need for your business, which may not be the same one as a similar business to you. And obviously personal life. So Julie covered that. Next slide, please, Mo. So business value, I talked a little bit about this, right, in terms of increasing efficiency and productivity. I think those are probably some of the most common benefits, value statements that we look at, or that customers think about, that we think about in terms of driving into a business, into our personal lives. But there are other interesting ones as well, right, in terms of driving innovations. And many have probably heard in terms of new products and services being ideated at companies through just having AI look through its data and be able to identify and suggest new business opportunities, new product lines that for whatever reason the company hadn't prioritized, and now they become mainstays or critical to their business strategy. Cost reduction is one also that people think about. Well, this is only about cost reduction, and sometimes gets coupled with this is about eliminating humans, right? It's not really about eliminating humans. It is going to move our cheese for sure, and it is already moving our cheese. And like the internet, it's going to cause us to evolve and adapt. But replacing humans, I don't know about Mo, but I don't think this is Skynet. Maybe in a few generations, but it's not Skynet where it's going to take over and we're going to be obsolete. It'll be a complementary piece.
We'll make my dreams of making Skynet happen a reality someday, Manuel. But
Yes.
You're talking about cost cutting, and one of the examples I love to share, and I love this example because it's not it's a very simple example of where AI helps with cost cutting, right? And you're right. Everyone always thinks that it's like, hey, cut people. But one of my favorite examples of AI is if any of you do laundry, which unfortunately it's my least favorite chore to do, but I have to do it. If you've used one of those new spouts on a laundry detergent dispenser, that was actually made through a machine learning algorithm, and the way that they made it at some dark dungeon lab here at P&G in Cincinnati was actually they just ran it through a R&D machine learning model, which just tried every example of a spout that dispenses a liquid of that viscosity, and they ran through millions and millions of examples through a machine learning model rather than having to go through the R&D of creating 7 or 8 different examples. So you think about that, that's a really innovative way of both a new product driving innovation and cost reduction using something simple like machine learning. And it wasn't that they used some really advanced algorithm. They literally just threw everything against the wall and just optimized for certain parameters, right? So a very simple example of how you can get some really innovative results with AI.
No, great point. Great point. And then this is something I was gonna key up a little bit later, but since you mentioned it, Mo, this is a great spot to mention. Is what we talk about is quick wins, right? And finding those quick wins, that's key. And you'll hear that probably throughout the days that we have this week at AI Week. But it's also something that the JD Edwards team is talking about, and they're talking about it as crawl, walk, and run, right, with AI, and get those quick wins, those areas where you can do something simple but impactful at the same time. So next slide, please. So key business functions, I talked about this earlier. We'll set the stage. We'll get into more use cases. I think you'll be very interested in what we're seeing from customers that we're speaking to, working with, and implementing AI. But some of the patterns, right? Customer-facing processes, marketing, sales, customer support. That's the one that I alluded to earlier that we see, right? We have a digital assistant that says, "Hi, I am Amy. Can I help you?" When you're browsing, when you're purchasing something on an e-commerce site. But sales processes, being able to streamline those processes. We had lots of conversations with customers in that field, as well as marketing. Like we talked about marketing, and not just having an agent help with the marketing, but able to sift through and find those insights that are important to help refine either the marketing process or sales process. And bottom line oriented operational functions, supply chain management, manufacturing. These are, again, similar to many analysts are talking about, that these are two main areas that customers will look at investing. What they don't say is at what phase. Is that phase one or is that phase two, right? So that's where we need some guidance in that area. Go ahead, next slide, please, Mo.
Yeah, and me being a distribution consultant, I always push for the supply chain use cases. Those are my favorite.
Yes, yes. I've heard that one before, Mo. So yes, I was expecting that comment. Didn't know when it would happen, but that's
Well,
great.
more to come.
Yes, more to come for sure. So key data points, and you can read these data points. A lot of traction, right? Deployments, the times, right? Averaging, all this stuff is from the major analysts. If you could, it's small print in the slide, but we looked at several analysts in terms of what they're doing. 71% of respondents already using AI in some way or form. The ROI, which we all look for, also very interesting. And my statistic here, and it's not mine, right? It's from the analyst, a little bit different than Julie's, but it still resonates, right? There's opportunity. There's opportunity for value with AI. Next slide, please. So why AI matters to executives, and we have this conversation quite a bit. I think you and I have discussed this, Mo, on several occasions, right? The why AI, and the why AI for different levels. There's different perspectives. Obviously, CEOs, right, looking at business strategy and how AI can help their strategy initiatives and vision. CIOs, CTOs, right? Of course, particularly looking for faster return on investments on things that they incorporate in the business. CFOs, of course, right? ROI as well, and transforming org being key, and obviously cost is a part and parcel of a CFO's role. And operationalizing at scale for the CEO, right? Really being able to drive operational efficiencies is tantamount, right, on the operation side. Mo, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I think each area and function of the business will look at AI a little bit differently. So one of the things I always encourage leaders is to not, think about how to blanket apply AI across the organization. I hear that a lot, like, oh, our CXO really wants us to use AI. Oh, so well, like there's a lot of nuance to it. There's a lot of diving deep into it, and that's what we hope you all will take away from this week, is kind of understanding, like, hey, AI is a really great tool. And it's a really great tool in the solutioner's tool belt. And, when applied correctly in the right way for each of these different areas in the business, it can have some really great results. And, you'll kind of see a lot of examples of that throughout the week.
Thank you, Mo. So barriers to adoption, and I'll bring these up, right? And when we say barriers to adoption, I'll go back to my analogy earlier, right? The internet of things. There, in every inflection point that we had in terms of technology, R&D, and then release into the marketplace has come with concerns, barriers, right? Considerations. And that's what they are, right? So when we talk about security, right, and being able to leverage not only your data, which the JD Edwards team talks about, your gold, right, is your digital gold that you have in your JD Edwards, and they're absolutely 100% right. But how do you then augment that data with external information to give, even more insights, right? Economic data, or whatever it might be, right? Industry data. And so security becomes tantamount in terms of an enterprise AI. You don't want your data out in the ether and others leveraging that, right, and getting insights that they're not supposed to. So bias, compliance, data, lack of awareness of understanding, concerns of side effects are all part and parcel of AI, right? But the other part that needs to be known is when I say they're part and parcel is two things. One, there are constructs that enterprise AI solutions have built into their platforms to be able to mitigate, to manage these, so that you're not exposing data that you're not supposed to, so that you're complying with your CISO's guidance and rules around AI use and sharing of or non-sharing of data. The best AI solutions are providing these capabilities. Now, even then, that's not enough, right? I go back to Julie's comment, right? It depends on us, right? That we monitor it, that we don't necessarily always kind of just think it's Skynet, it's running on its own, and it's got its own mind, right? It will grow, it will continue to learn for sure, but it requires still oversight from a human, as well as a proper configuration, so that you don't get these the bias, or you don't get the hallucinations, is another term that you've probably heard about, and you get the value. Any additional insights there, Mo?
No, security is absolutely important. Please do not upload key company, personal, or customer data into an AI agent, right? An AI tool, right? There's ways to set this up. Don't go to your personal chat GPT login and upload things. And these are actually, the thing is, these are conversations we had to have internally with our team. When a consultant comes to me and says, hey, can I use chat GPT for this? And like, well, no, you can't. We have to go through the proper channels, and we have to make sure that we are securing the data, and we're not doing that stuff, right? There's really sensitive data, and you have to be very, very aware of that, and it was things that we had to understand ourselves. We were like, oh, well, I can put my own stock trades in my chat GPT, right? But I don't want to put my customer information in there, right? So there's all that understanding of the security aspects of this that we had to go through so much learning ourselves just to understand, like, hey, what is the right way of doing this?
Exactly.
And I don't think you and I still know all about it, right? There's still times, Manuel, where you and I will like, oh, let's go pull Sean, our information security officer, and let's just go ask him about what to do here or here, because we're not sure how this would work, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. We're constantly learning, right?
Mhm.
And even internally in our operations, because we do use AI as well. So, next slide. So with that, right, is there are a variety of different offerings in the marketplace. The one that we're working with right now is Oracle's AI, mainly because JD Edwards, we support and provide end-to-end consulting for the JD Edwards ERP, and JD Edwards is part of Oracle, so we've gone here first. At the same time, my team is also exploring different AI technologies for insights, for additional capabilities that might extend what Oracle has. But the important thing here is, one, I'll go back to another example you talked about, Mo, about being careful about teams using AI maybe that are not necessarily configured to be safe. But we have our developers use AI. There's code assist type of technology, and Oracle has it. But again, right, it's a very excellent productivity tool for them, where it can create. It's amazing what it can create. Java code and other scripting languages, pretty impressive. But again, once you put your example out there, it's out for everybody's use.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. So this is an eye chart. I'm not planning on going through this, but what I wanted to underscore is enterprise AI solutions like Oracle that have not only a robust collection and a growing collection of AI services and agentic type of capabilities and platforms that simplify the way you stitch these together and leverage their value. Still look for the security capabilities. It's not called out in this slide, but intrinsic to each of the services Oracle's built out security measures, compliance measures, so that you can configure it according to your particular business needs. Next slide, please. Let's go ahead and do this build out. I should have build out. So speaking of that, right, Orchestrator and UDOs, every JD Edwards customer has heard of in the last 10 years, Orchestrator Studio in particular. But looking at AI through the Orchestrator lens, Orchestrator is tantamount for that for AI to work with JD Edwards, and we leverage that as well, and that opens up the magic, right? So there's native authentication of OCI AI services that the JD Edwards team has enabled directly, that can be done directly within Orchestrator, and then that's how you can leverage the eye chart of services that I showed earlier to be able to enable an AI solution for your JD Edwards ERP. Next slide, please. And I think I'll just say that I think Mo has posted a poll in the space here. So if you look at the chat space, you'll see a tab at the top. The middle option will say polls, and that's how you can interact and respond. So I'd love to have your feedback on the poll. Next slide. So this one's a little bit more detailed in terms of Orchestration Studio and whatnot. Many times people ask, well, Orchestration Studio has OCI AI authentication services. That's great. That simplifies things. That basically opens up all the possibilities of all the agents for Oracle being used with JD Edwards. But I run on on-premise JD Edwards, or my JD Edwards runs on a different cloud. So a couple of things. If you want to use Oracle AI, you do not need to be running on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. You can, obviously, but it's not required. So you, for example, you could be running AWS, your JD Edwards workloads on AWS or Azure or any one of the other clouds, and it will work, obviously not only work, but perform correctly. And that's part of Oracle's multi-cloud strategy, right? To be able to leverage not only AI across different platforms, we have it communicate correctly, but as well as other OCI components. Next slide, please. Maybe I'll hand this baton over to you, Mo.
Yeah, I love talking about use cases, and that's kind of, if you guys couldn't tell, that's the theme of what I'll be talking a lot about during this week, which is use cases, right? Because at the end of the day, AI is really cool, but we want you to start using it, right? And one of the things that we are working on here is trying to build accelerators for our customers, because we know that there is a bit of a barrier to adoption, right? That Manuel mentioned earlier, around just sometimes getting started, right? There's also this perception that it's really expensive and time consuming to do AI, right? And those things can be true, but it also just really depends on how you slice the cake. So one of the things that we're doing is trying to create these accelerators internally that we can kind of just create as like templates for our customers, right? So and the point of this is not to say like, hey, here's what ERP Suites is doing. It's to say that this is actually very easy to do and very doable, with anybody who has, a small IT R&D budget and some expertise around Orchestrator, right? For those of you who want to see a more detailed technical walkthrough of this, I would highly recommend that you check out Frank Jordan's session with Carl DiGiovanni, and they'll walk through how they built orchestrations to use OCI services to do a lot of the things that we're talking about here and a lot of the things you'll see throughout the week. So there's some very interesting solutions that we're working on here, right? So, and they kind of follow similar themes. And the very nice thing is in JD Edwards is once you kind of build a theme of tool for one area, it's very easy to then apply that theme of tool to another area, right? So one of my favorite ones here that we've worked on and continue to build out and perfect over the last couple of months is the document extraction, the document understanding side of it, right? We've now used these to enter in customers, vendors, right? So if you have a supplier request form or a customer request form, right? There's ways that you can automate that. It's really simple. It's kind of, you feed a document in. There's a AI layer that kind of understands that document. You have to, of course, teach it certain things. So you have to teach it, they're robots. They learn, and AI I don't like to call a robot, orchestrator I like to call a robot, AI I like to call an intern, but the AI intern kind of learns, but it doesn't really know right away that, hey, what is a supplier number? What does a supplier number mean? So you start to teach it these things, and it starts to learn and get really much better at that, right? One of the other ones that I really enjoy is our digital sales assistant and our digital financial assistant, right? So these are ones where you feed this agentic layer all this information about your sales. And again, going back to that security, you don't want to just have this out in the ether, right? So you want to make sure that as you're doing this is in your OCI tenant. It's inside of a secured layer, that this data is not being fed out other places, right? But once you have that set up, you can really feed the sales assistant all of your historical data around sales orders. And now you've got a really cool sales assistant, a chat, basically essentially an intern you can talk to about past sales orders, pricing, volumes, right? Discounts, things like that. So many of our customers, they have outside sales reps who are out, doing what they should be doing. They're outside selling to your customers, right? And they don't want to have to always pick up the phone and call somebody on their way into a customer. So they want to just be able to send something, a text message or a chat message or a Teams message, and say, hey, give me the last 10 order items that this customer ordered and whether we were on time or late for any of those orders, right? And have this agent return that data back, right? So now you're enabling your field salespeople to really have more real-time information, more up to date, and kind of be more better equipped for the conversations they're about to have. And these are just examples. We'll talk about these a lot throughout the week. There's demos of our financial assistant. There's demos of our other assistants we've created. There's demos of document understanding this week. So please, peruse through the different sessions this week, and please sign up for these. I think it'll be very valuable. Definitely sign up for the Frank session. I know that's one I'm going to be sitting in on. So we'll go there. So, and here's kind of one of the example I was talking about, right? So this is an example where we are able to drop a customer quote, right? So we call this our quote to order, but it can also be used for sales orders or quotes. It can be used for purchase orders. Essentially, that document understanding layer is very similar, right? And this AI agent can take a document, and I don't want you to mistake this or kind of conflate this with the OCR of yesteryear, right? OCR was, you showed me a letter and I understand that letter is U, and then I understand the next letter is S, and I understand the next letter is I and N and G, but I have no idea what that means, right? Document understanding is a little bit different, right? So it essentially reads through the document and you teach it the context behind that document, and it knows that this is a sales order, and a sales order is supposed to go into this file in JD Edwards, and then it's supposed to use this application. And again, it doesn't know that until we teach it, but once you teach it, it builds on that context, right? Um, Hence why I call it an intern, right? It's like this intern you get, and then you teach it more and more, and it learns and it gets better. And that's why I like to use that intern concept a lot, right? So then this example, you can actually with this quote understanding agent we have, you can upload a quote document, a sales quote, a purchase order from your customers, whatever that may be. It will scrape through the information, understand what the information is in there, convert that information into a JSON output, and then call an orchestration, right? Which then enters the data. Now, sorry, Manuel, for giving away the secret sauce
Okay.
here, but but it really is that. Now, the real secret sauce is in the context of helping the agent understand what all that means, right? And that's why earlier we were talking about why AI and orchestrator are so important together, because the way that I always like to think about it is AI is kind of the brains of this new, you know, this new T2000 Terminator we're creating, and an orchestrator is the body of the T2000 or T1000. I need to rewatch the Terminator. So this is one of my favorite examples. But here in this example, where you can see we've done this for demo purposes, right? Where you can drop a PDF into this box, right? The file uploader, and then it will scrape through, read the document, understand what needs to go in, and enter a sales order or a quote or a purchase order into JD Edwards, right? It's actually when you watch it, you're kind of like, when you watch it, you're like, that was kind of overwhelming or underwhelming because it just appears. But the magic behind it is that it's so simple that it looks effortless, right?
Yep, and
And that's a huge testament to Manuel and his team and the work they've done.
no, it's been a collaborative effort for sure. But what's cool about this is, Mo, is it's learning as well, like you said, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah.
it's effortless. It goes in and it's learning on its own, so that you can expand it, right? So they can make recommendations for future quotes, some suggestions to the CSR, to suggest other items or upselling, cross-selling, kind of on steroids, right? Because some of you might say, well, that's in JD Edwards, right? But this will enhance that capability. Secondly, and just as importantly, is the user experience, right? So here's how Mo talked about it, right? You're in the same, sales order entry application that you would use today, that you all use today. So the embedding of AI into E1 is being done in a way so that you can have the same user experience and still be in the hub that the user is experienced, but being able to be enhanced with AI. And we're doing that without having to create customizations to your objects.
Yeah. Yeah. No, great point. There's also a layer of this where you're able to also deal with any exceptions, right? Because if it doesn't really quite understand something, or doesn't really get something correct, there's a process to go through an exception as well. So you can kind of tell it, no, you got it wrong, and or where it can come back to you and say, hey, I'm not, I don't really understand this, and then you as the human kind of have to step in. So again, going back to it doesn't eliminate humans, it just makes the human's life a lot easier. Anything else to add about this spin one?
Nope, I think we're good, sir. Move on
Oh.
into the next one.
I think another one of our agents that's really, really cool, Emmanuel, this is probably one of our first ones, right? I
It is
think.
one of the first ones. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty cool, right? We start off with this one. This one's in the manufacturing workspace. And by the way, everyone, there'll be breakout sessions on several of these ones that we're touching upon with Mo. If you're curious, I was like, I want to learn more about that and what other things we are considering, because these are pilots, or kind of like accelerators is the word that you used, Mo, right? That we're building out, where we'll continue to enhance these. But this one in the workload management, right? Of course, in the manufacturing space, which we know JD Edwards customers are strong in this area. It drives amazing efficiency, right? And help with managing master data and whatnot. But again,
I,
this is a digital assistant type of engagement model. Go ahead, Mo.
I think the use case on this one was fascinating to me because it's something that I think plagues a lot of companies and customers, and we don't like to talk about it a lot. Is that master data management is really, really hard. It really is difficult. It's a challenge, and everyone struggles doing it well. And I think AI is going to be a really revolutionary concept in helping people maintain master data well. And that's really where this came from, right? We had a customer who came to us and said, hey, we just really have a hard time keeping our master data for bombs and routings up to date. And we have a very hard time on making changes to those bombs and routings, especially on the fly, because people just don't want to disrupt their work process. They don't want to disrupt their workflow, right? We want to just make things. We want to run machines and we want to make things. We don't want to have to go back into the system and update an alternate routing. So we said, okay, well, what if the intelligence is in the person who's doing the actual processing, the operator of the machine knows what they're doing. What if we created essentially a conduit for that operator to be able to relay information back to an agent who would take care of the master data updating, if as long as the human being where the intelligence is can relay that information back to this agent, right? And that's what we set out to solve. So that's where we ended up, which is saying, hey, when there's a master data, when there's a routing change made, if that routing on the fly in a work order, if that routing exists as an alternate routing or it doesn't, work through this with an agent where the agent takes care of updating all the master data and the human just kind of gets to dictate to the agent on what master data to update, what changes to make, and what to do. And the agent will do all the real grunt work for you, right? So again, it's kind of just like having a manufacturing shop floor intern just right next to the operator, accessible to the operator via their phone, that the operator can just can kind of communicate with. And it takes the cumbersome part of keeping master data updated, which is actually the changing of the data, right? It takes all that out of the human being's hands and lets them do what they're really good at, which is thinking through problems and thinking through things. So, anything else to add on this one, Manuel?
No, this is good. This is good. Let's go on. I think we have, well, you talked about this one, financial digital assistant. We'll actually have a session on this tomorrow to get additional insights. This one's similar to the prior one from an engagement model, right? The previous one was a digital assistant that goes hand in hand with the application. Same with this one. Remember, the first one, though, for sales was one where the AI is embedded in JD Edwards. So the user experience is directly in the app. And we're also looking at this, right, and having conversations with customers to get input on like what's the engagement model, right, for AI. Sometimes it's either a digital assistant, sometimes it's just within the app, and some cases it's both, right? Well,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and it's really use case specific, right? I'm being a supply chain guy. I'm really big on being where the work happens, right? So we want to make sure that the AI agent is also where the work happens. If the operator is operating a machine, then they probably don't have access to a computer. So can we get them the AI agent accessible via their phones, right?
mhm.
And or if somebody is running financial reports at month end close, they're probably going to be in JD Edwards and trying to figure things out in maybe a reporting package or something else. So we want to make sure that the AI agent is enabled right there for them inside of JD Edwards, right? So that's where we have Franklin kind of, right, adjacent to JD Edwards, so that way they can view their data at the same time. I thought this the financial digital system was really cool in the sense that when our team walked me through how it actually works,
Mhm,
it's really cool. It's actually just like it reminded me of some of the best FP&A analysts I've just met throughout my
mhm.
career at various customers. Because inevitably, what they get really good at doing is running queries, data queries, right? And so it was natural when we were talking to financial experts and customers on what you would like out of a finance digital assistant. A lot of them came back with, we just need to be able to ask it questions and have it be able to present queried information very cleanly, right? And so essentially what we did was created an FP&A intern. I won't say they're at an analyst level yet, FP&A intern, that can essentially do very deep, very complicated reporting queries, as you can kind of see on the right side. And if you go get a chance to watch the breakout demo, you'll see really the depth of where it can go. Anything
Great.
else to add, Manuel?
Nope, we were good, sir. Let's go on.
So this is one we're working on right now with a customer where we've essentially built the tool and platform for them using the new automated safety stock messages that now come in JDE, where if you're using this functionality, JDE will calculate recommended safety stock for you. Well, the calculations that's provided out of the box are really great, but sometimes customers have very specific nuanced, very bespoke kind of calculations that need to be added on there, right? So we felt that was a very natural case for, more of an intelligent automated safety stock, right? So Oracle gave us a great automated safety stock, and we're adding some intelligence onto it. So you can look at things like seasonality, predictive trends, anomaly detections. I'm still looking for a customer who would be willing to try this with us. So if you're interested in this use case I'm about to mention, with this, please let me know. But something that could take into account recent events like storms or upcoming, geopolitical events, right? As we're in the environment now, can we take those things into account? Because you can use AI to scrape news data, you can use AI to scrape sentiment data off of different sites in different areas, right? Can we use that? So if you're anybody who'd like to be interested in having the current global weather and geopolitical events taken into consideration for your safety stock and your MRP, please let me know. I'd love to have a customer to partner with on that one. So there's really a lot of intelligence you can build into this, right? Similarly, the same customer we had for the safety stock eventually then went on to expand this to MRP as well, where now we're wanting to take what's in MRP and then apply more intelligence to that calculation, right? Because there's always certain things that you want to take into account that MRP may not, right? Again, these are things that typically live outside of JD Edwards, or are things that are a little bit more complicated than what JD Edwards would traditionally calculate as part of MRP. So again, these things are like seasonality, predictive trends, risk analysis for suppliers, right? Things like that where you're not, you wouldn't traditionally take into account for those with MRP. So what we've done is we've essentially created the platform for the customer inside of JD Edwards to be able to do this, and then we're working on the services of where the intelligence is. And the reason those two things are kind of built separately is so that way you can always plug and play them, right? You can always kind of plug out one type of intelligence and plug in new types of intelligence, or you can plug in multiple types of intelligence, and then the platform to update the messages or update the safety stock messages is essentially the same. Because these two technologies use very similar applications in JD Edwards, that's why they kind of went hand in hand in the way that we created them, right? So two very cool things, and very, I think, interesting takes on what has been very traditional functionality inside of JD Edwards for decades now, which is MRP and safety stock, right? But now with the advent of AI, we can kind of see, how do you take these to the next level, right? So there is still room to be innovative and to drive value out of these things, and it's all very bespoke to your business, right? So that's kind of where I always caution people is, you know these are very specific rules. These are very specifically apply to your business, your supply chains, right? You may have a distribution center somewhere in Europe, and another manufacturing facility somewhere in Eastern Asia, and then another facility somewhere in South America. And there may be specific rules between those three that you want to set up, right? And something that goes beyond the DRP rules that are in JD Edwards. So I think these are some pretty cool use cases that we've seen so far,
Ooh,
or we've built out so far. Manuel, anything to add on these two?
nope, we are good, sir. Let's
Awesome.
move forward.
So
So go ahead, Mo.
no, I will hand it off to you to talk about how do people get started with AI.
Yeah, so, and I know we're running about 4 minutes left, so we'll cover this, and then we'll have some closing comments, see if we can take a question or two. So one of the questions that comes up is, how do I get started, right? Where do I start? I don't know where, that sort of thing. So what we found is, just like any other type of IT project, right? Be it implementing an ERP, doing a significant JD Edwards applications upgrade, or adopting other ancillary systems that are intricate, right? A process, a methodology is tantamount, right, for having a successful project. And it's no different with AI, right? There may be some other considerations with AI that need to be incorporated, but having a process and a methodology, it will help assure that you get the expected value return, right? And not only the solution, but the return at the end of the day. So You'll hear us talk a little bit about the AI journey methodology that we've put together, but just wanted to raise that in general. Always think about having a methodology that you leverage so that your project, and it doesn't have to be long drawn out, right? We talked about quick wins. There's ways to do and go through the necessary evaluation and assessing and selection of the right use cases in a rapid fashion as well. So keep that in mind. And please, in the different sessions that you attend this week, breakout sessions, multiple speakers will be talking about the AI journey as well. Anything else to add on this point? Mo?
No, just an emphasis that do not sleep on the phase two, which is to cleanse and optimize. Manuel kind of alluded to that earlier, that AI tends to have hallucinations and drift. And the cleaner your data, the less hallucinations and drift. So that phase, all of the phases are definitely important, but I cannot stress the importance of phase one and phase two, right? It's very important to have a good roadmap, very important to have clean data. The building of the AI tool, as in all most technology, that usually ends up being the part that's the most straightforward. So yeah.
Great. I think next slide. I think we're in the Q&A, maybe. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Q&A real quick. See if we have a couple minutes. I'll just pitch, right, the sessions that Mo alluded to, right? Take a look at those breakout session, deep dive sessions on the functional use cases, which we've talked about quite a bit. And Julie talked about is finding the right use case, prioritizing. We have a session on that and consideration. So make sure you attend that session that Renee Lorden is leading. There's just a plethora of different sessions. I'm probably missing many of them. Mo, I don't know if there's any else you'd like to call out.
I have use case sessions later today for procurement, tomorrow for sales and inventory, if I'm not mistaken, and Thursday for manufacturing. So please attend those as well. We will be both I will do some use cases, and then I will also open it up some time in the chat for people to do a little brainstorming in as a group. So
awesome. So any questions maybe you'd like to open up? You should have in the same place with the chat, you have a Q&A section. You can post there or the chat if you have any questions. Let's see. There's a few questions. Merger. Yeah, I'm reading use cases for mergers and acquisition. Very interesting. We have had some preliminary conversations around that because we seem to be have lots of experience in that space. We've helped customers with the general merger and acquisitions, and those are ones that we've done frequently. So we're evaluating the use case and how we could help, or how AI could help that process. Any additional insight there, Mo?
Apologies, I was typing an answer to Susan as well on that. On mergers and acquisitions, it really depends on where you're trying to do on the E1 side, right? There's a lot of mergers and acquisitions, use cases with AI in general. Since we're focusing a little bit more on the JD Edwards side of things, right? Depending on how you're doing the mergers, what the effects that has on your financial transactions, what effects that has on your procurement transactions, your sales transactions, those things AI can definitely help with, right? And AI that we can help with. But for example, if you need M&A contracts reviewed, things like that, those are other AI services that are also available from Oracle. That don't necessarily interact with JD Edwards, or may interact with JD Edwards in limited ways. But long story short, it really is going to depend on what your specific use case is and what you're trying to execute, right? But definitely doable, right? We are kind of in a bit of secret, so I won't let out too much. But we're trying to see if we can have a job cost assistant as well with AI that helps with kind of creating new jobs and budgets for construction, construction clients, right? So that essentially would be another way where we can help with the M&A side of things.